Hi everybody, welcome back to the Starlight Haven. My name is Tabitha Romero, and this week we are going to be tuning into the shadow, and I'm gonna use my own shadow as an example, because when I was when I was channeling in meditation the other day, what I was really tuning into was the way that my shadow wanted to come forward and speak to the collective, that I had to kind of get to a place where I see, and I speak this a lot, I speak this to myself a lot, that the shadow is extremely supportive of us. It is the inner child parts of ourselves that really want to stand up for themselves. They want to be heard. They want to be chosen and spoken to. And they have so much wisdom to offer because they are the parts of ourselves that we really shamed and shunned because they didn't fit a certain narrative that our parents were telling us we had to fit, that our families maybe have been telling us that we have to fit. And so they simply don't fit into those narratives. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? Like, as we go through our awakening journey, it's okay to get to a place where we really are like prioritizing ourselves and what we need as people, and whatever that looks like for you. And as your heart opens up, it becomes harder and harder and harder to be listening to the stories of other people as they try to like overlay what we inherently know is true for us. And so we start to throw those things out, and we are really supported right now in doing that. And so the shadow can be specifically helpful in doing this work because it's essentially the key. And so when I was in meditation, my shadow was coming forward with this really strong message that was, quite simply, I am not ready. And so we are going to run with that this week. We're going to run with this idea that we aren't ready, that we're not ready to expand, that we're not ready to speak and use our voices, that we're not ready to really show up in the world in the way that we might want to, and we might want to expand in those ways, but we are in a place where we're just telling ourselves it's not time. And we give ourselves a million excuses. It could be I don't have what I need to start, when maybe all you need is your cell phone, and that's it, right? Just to get the juices flowing, because things don't necessarily have to be perfect, right? Things don't, especially when we're talking about expansion, things aren't perfect. Things aren't so like cut and dry. We could prepare as much as we want to. We could buy all the things, spend all the money, if we have it, and still not get to a place where we're still consistently creating and still consistently using our voices. And that just comes from that place of being afraid and not feeling ready to show up. And so we're going to drop in to the body and to the self, and to really come through with this collective message of why we're not ready to necessarily show up for ourselves in this way. Because I think that this is a message that's really important in this moment, because we are seeing people using their voice all the time, right? And we're not going to get into the nitty gritty detail of like, oh, like, just because, for example, these rallies that were happening, right? We have a tendency to label things as good or bad. And I don't think that, spirit guides us in that way, right? Spirit guides us in the way that is needed for us to not only alchemize our own lives, but also help alchemize the lives of others, because we are one. So I've been seeing a lot of separation narrative around, our political environment, or climate, I should say, where, we really have this like left and right narrative, but realistically, those things are dissolving. And so as they dissolve, what do we have left, right? And the way we figure out what that is left is, like what we have left is by going inward and really receiving ourselves from a place of no judgment and complete compassion, and acknowledging the shadow and seeing what's there for us to learn and witness. And so now what we're just going to do is drop in and receive what Spirit has to say about, feeling like we can't show up in the world. And the way this is going to work, if you're new here, if you're watching me for the first time, I channel myself. I am my, highest light being of, I'm my own divination tool. I do have spirit guides. I do work with collectives, and I work with Telos. I work with, Mount Shasta. I work with Lemurian elders. But ultimately what I channel is myself. And a lot of the times this is part of this conversation of I'm not ready. Sometimes we feel like what we have to offer isn't enough. And we have to realize that we are enough, and we have so much potent magic within ourselves if we're willing to receive it for ourselves, right? This transmission is just as much for me as it will be for you. And I hope that it gives you exactly what you need today, and just setting the intention to receive from yourself the messages that you need, the courage that you desire to really embody, to be able to show up in the world in the way that you need. And so that first message that's really coming through right now, that's just blatantly clear to me, is that perfection is not necessary. Perfection isn't necessary. Put away this idea of what has to be perfect, and just put out what you have. It's not necessary that we show up and try and be perfect, because that perfection isn't coming from what we feel is perfect. It's coming from what we think is perfection. And we didn't really come up with that ourselves, right? That was come up with for us. And so that's the first message that's coming through without me even dropping in yet. So releasing this idea that we have to be perfect. And what we're going to do is just really drop into our bodies and pay attention to our breath as this reminder that we are here and that we are alive, that our existence is worthy, that it is important that we are here. And it's important that we are in a human body, that we enjoy being in the human body, that when we do this work, we are fully in our bodies. And with that, we just, maybe it's for the first time, really feel what your body feels like. We can rub our legs, rub our arms, and really get to a place where we are acknowledging, I am in a human body, I am human. And that as a human, we are also star seeds. We are star beings. Humans are star beings. And so we're tuning into the energy of perfectionism, tuning into where that comes from. Maybe it's from feeling like you have to be perfect for your family to accept you, and so they told you what perfection looked like. Maybe it means being accepted by your peers, having to look a certain way to be accepted, to be loved, to be acknowledged, having to alter yourself to fit the needs of other people. maybe perfection looked like good grades in school. And maybe it looked like, maybe maybe the idea of perfection also comes with failure. Feeling like you failed to meet the needs of other people or to get good grades. And so we realize perfection is really up to par with the expectations of others. That's where this comes from. Perfection comes from meeting the expectations of people who aren't even us. And I want you to sit with that feeling of our being based on the expectations of other people, of meeting their needs. And when we get there, we realize that at some point, when we tried to vocalize what we needed and what we desired, we were told that it wasn't good enough. We were doubted. We were sold a narrative of maybe an American dream. We were sold a narrative about wealth, survival, and that if we didn't achieve those things that we would fail, that we wouldn't thrive. And so at the end of the day, what becomes our goal is survival. And so a lot of the times, striving for perfection means surviving. And so today, we work on releasing that. It's like being on a diet, right? It's like, oh, I gotta, maybe you cut out all sugar, right? Maybe you're cutting out all carbs, and maybe sometimes you want to eat a cookie and you don't let yourself have that cookie because you're afraid of something happening to your body, of you being unhealthy. And so you restrict that from yourself. And so we've taken this diet culture, this concept of starvation, we've brought that into our lives. And when we bring that into our lives, we are looking at our lives like we're on a diet. When we are only living for the perfectionism of others, for survival, we starve ourselves of much needed experience, of outlets that we plug into when it charges us up. We are missing out on those things because we're telling ourselves, no, you can't do that. This isn't what's going to help with our survival, even if it feels good to you in that moment, right? And so we're going to continue to use this metaphor of food because I think food is really important right now and in nourishing our bodies as we go through these cellular changes. So I'm going to incorporate a little food metaphor here and there when we go into this. And what has been coming through for me, especially as we look out into the world where there's this big gap between poverty and wealth, and we look at areas like a really big one is Gaza, right, where food was being used as a tactic to control and manipulate. When we look at those things, we can get to a point where we realize that we can be in a position where we are holding, and this is going to sound silly, but this is how it always comes through to me, is this, we're holding a spatula, right? We have the spatula. the pan's in front of us. And are we going to choose to use that spatula to nourish our body with the foods that we need, that our body is telling us we need? Because in literal terms, right, food is helping us process emotion. It's helping us stay in the body. It's helping us stay grounded. It's helping us hear our own inner voice, because we are putting ourselves first to this degree, right? We are like, I'm going to feed my body. This is important to me. I'm going to nourish my body with food. And I'm going to be able to start to make the changes that I need, because a lot of us are so literally and metaphorically hungry. It's like we aren't satiated. And a lot of the times it's because, again, we are living through the lens of other people, through the expectations that others have set for us, even though they may not benefit us at all, but we are trying to fit a mold for survival. We're trying to fit that idea of perfection. And so, you know, when we have that spatula and we choose to create for ourselves, right, because we don't have to just speak about food in this way, but it's really connected to nourishment. As soon as we start nourishing our body with foods, we also start, because a lot of us don't actually eat enough, and a lot of us ignore the things that we desire, and that comes down to pleasure as well. Not wanting, not allowing yourselves to experience pleasure through food, because it is a really visceral experience to eat food and really love it and have joy. And we've been taught that refraining and restraining from those things creates discipline, and that if we ignore those things, then we don't have discipline. And to me, it's like it's another form that we've taken on to starve ourselves, because our needs are the most important, and we need to trust ourselves. And part of trusting ourselves is listening to our needs. When our body is communicating with us that it needs something, it's important. And so we can take the same metaphor of the spatula and think about the ingredients that we're putting. Is this meal, right, this metaphorical meal, gonna hit the spot for us? Are we gonna create this content, and is it going to leave us fulfilled? Are we going to show up and speak, and are we feeling fulfilled by that? Or are we, again, going to live our lives on a diet where we are meeting the expectations of other people before ourselves? And will we feel fulfilled by that? That doesn't mean that, living this experience where we have catered to the expectations of others isn't important, because it is important. It's how we learn to essentially hear our own voices, because we learn to decipher what's somebody else's voice and what's your voice. And when we do that, that's the point of living through the expectations of others, is to claim your power back and really accept the invitation to get to know yourself. And then when we get to know ourselves, we're provided with all the ingredients that we need. Oh, does this sound good today? Great. Make it and enjoy it. Really feel the joy of that creation. And we are doing that with the ways that we speak out into the world. Because if it's not coming from a frequency of your joy, then it's not going to hit, right? It's not going to hit the way that you need. And I'm not talking about the people watching you. I'm talking about you. It's not going to hit for you. And so, because that's the most important part, because your work is just as healing for you as it is for other people. So, yeah, when we release this idea of perfectionism and this, I'm not ready because it's not perfect, we are opening ourselves up to so much more ingredients to create exactly what we're craving, because those ingredients are provided to us when we go through our, internal being, and we're like, okay, this is not me. These things don't sound good. I don't want to cook with these things. I don't want to eat these things. But some of those things sometimes are kept, right? And those things are things that satiate us and they feel good, right? And then we look over here where our shadow is, and the depths of our being are, where our connection to God is, where our connection to all things in this world are, and we see the infinite prosperity that's here, the infinite abundance that is here for us to create with, and we know exactly what to do with them because our internal navigation system isn't going to be clouded by the voice of other people. And we'll continue to go into this because, this whole series of videos that I've been kind of thinking up for this year has really been related to the concept of making something great. What does it mean for something to be great? What does it mean to us? What does greatness mean to us? And as we all redefine that, we can really come outwards and, make America great. Like, that is truly what my goal is with this series of videos, because I just want to learn that for myself as well. Like, what is my story? What makes me great? Because we all are great, and we are all worthy of diving into our depths and realizing that and living the life we truly desire and want to live. And we deserve to live that life feeling nourished and fed and receiving ourselves in a way in which we're not constantly critiquing ourselves. I have a video on how we put ourselves on a scale of 1 through 5. That's really great. Also to kind of get this concept across of like, we're putting ourselves on a scale of 1 through 5 and we're rating ourselves in others because we've learned to commodify ourselves in others. We've learned to see ourselves as a product in which we can sell ourselves to other people, right? And that comes from a place of and again, the standards of perfection of other people and what we feel like we needed to do to survive. And now we're coming from a place of, oh, who am I, and how can I use my voice to really speak the truth of who I am from a place of nourishment, because I provide that nourishment to myself. So what I'm going to do now is just going to tune into if there is anything else within me that wants to come through with this message. Okay, so the other message that's coming through here is feeling unready because it feels like a chore. Feeling like we don't want to get started with speaking in this way because it feels like a chore. It doesn't feel like you're having fun. Like it's not like we're not tuning into the inner child aspect of ourselves that like is excited to create, that wants to create, wants to have fun, and that can make it feel like a chore. And so and that's another way we know we are a little bit out of alignment with the way that we are creating, is when it starts to feel tedious. And hard work is one thing, right? But when we start to not want to do something because it starts to feel like a chore, that's when we need to realign something within ourselves, and look at something, and we can tune into our being and feel what that is. And it really comes from that same place of fear. Yeah, it's almost like a lot of these things are just I don't like the word sabotage, but it feels like these are things that we're like, okay, like I don't want to do this anymore because it's hard work and it feels like a chore and it doesn't feel like, and then we go back to step 1 and we're like, okay, where am I not living for myself? Where is someone's story starting to bleed into what I'm creating? And yeah, it really comes down to really getting to know your voice the best. And I know, and this is the thing about programs and stuff, because I think programs are really important. I think learning to sell your product is important. I think, gathering new skills from people who have mastered things that, we're still learning is really important. But if we haven't learned yet to decipher our voice from other people's, it can be really easy to get to a place where we start creating with someone else's voice again. And yeah, it's important that even when we're in these programs, right, this is what's just coming through right now. Like if you decide to learn from other people, which is really beautiful, it's still important that you learn your voice from others and really see where, like, am I trying to meet the expectations of this thing I've invested in? Or am I still going to hear myself first and make sure that I'm prioritizing what my desires are first before even something that we see as someone who's mastered certain things? Like, even if they've mastered certain skills and you're learning from them, it's also okay to acknowledge that you are the master of yourself, right? So you're mastering you. And so with that mastering comes that like inherent like, aha, like that's not right for me. So just being sure that you don't bypass that feeling, because it can be really easy to bypass our own innate wisdom when we're taught that. So just that was coming through. And so yeah, just allowing ourselves to, when things feel like a chore, looking at where our own voice isn't being used. Because when we're truly using our own voice, it doesn't feel like a chore to create. Okay, so yeah, that's pretty much what's coming through. Is like, if you are in a place, if this is a message that is resonating with you, I'm not ready, you will always be ready. Even if, like, the challenge for you is to show up in the world even when you don't see yourself as perfect enough to show up. And knowing that you as the creator, in any way that you choose to show up, is perfect because it's you. And to not overthink the ways that you want to show up, right? Because you might have that like, oh, like this is how I want to show up, but then there might be something that tells you that it's not good enough. And so we are looking to not silence the voice of others, but to acknowledge that's happening, and to use it as a learning tool. Okay, so if you are somebody who is seeing this message and you were deeply relating to this I'm not ready message, here's your sign that you are ready. And if you feel like you're not ready, throw out this idea of perfectionism. Throw out the idea that you have to be perfect. See where that comes from. Really tune into your heart. See maybe where other people's voices are telling you that. Maybe it's not your own voice. And maybe you really feel like right now is a time that I'm not creating. I am creating my life in a different way. And that doesn't mean that I have to speak into a camera, right? Maybe that's where you're at. And that's beautiful too, because maybe you are still gathering information from your environment and the world around you. And because those things are really important to activating us to our like, because we're already activated on our purpose. Like, I know that a lot of things out there will tell you that you have to activate your purpose. You have to do these things to be on track, to be on the right path, right? this comes with this idea that you could ever be lost. And I don't buy into that story, right? I don't think that people could ever not be on their journey. I think that the way that you decide to live your life, you are still on your journey and you are still finding your magic. And I think that when we set the intention to create more and to learn ourselves a bit better, we are amplifying that energy. And so we are allowing spirit to come in and help support us in getting what we desire, right? Like, and I don't mean just like loads of money or, you know, a lot of people watching your content. I mean fulfillment and feeling truly, truly fulfilled. And with that other stuff probably comes, right? Like from feeling that fulfillment within ourselves, because we're not starving and seeking outward so much. And so today I just encourage you to really practice deep nourishment within yourself. Explore your depths. Talk to your shadow. Make friends with it. Talk to it about perfection and see what comes up for you. And if you're someone who is like, well, how the hell do I do that? Well, all you have to do is really shut your eyes and connect in with your body. Drop into your body. Really feel like that humanness that we are. And be like, okay, I am human. I am on this planet. I am deeply connected to myself. And I want to speak to the parts of myself that I'm ashamed of. I want to speak to those parts of myself that really want to come up and speak. They want to speak out to me and possibly to the rest of the world. I want to get to know those parts. I want to acknowledge them and see what messages are there for me. And you could focus on perfectionism, or you can allow the shadow to really take your hand and lead you through conversation. And so that's all I have for you guys for this week, and I hope you take the opportunity to really explore your depths and again start to unravel the story that other people have told you your whole life, and really acknowledge how important you are just through your existence, and that you are not stalled. You are exactly where you are meant to be at all times, and you are 100% on your path. And I'm sending you so much love and joy. Bye.